What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Chop It Up. Starting to find our midseason form here. We welcome on the permanent new co-host of the show, Hunter Fullerton. We saw him on the picks this week. He went 2 for 5. I went 0 for 5 in our college football week 5 picks. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into hopefully a little Ryder Cup action, as it was a very interesting Sunday. And then we're going to wrap it up with a new segment of the show, Dude of the Week. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Bean, it was a wild week in college football. We'll start it off in the SEC. Georgia loses at home, snaps the longest home winning streak in college football. They lose to an Alabama team that Kirby Smart just can't beat. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because he coached there. But for whatever reason, Kirby Smart just can't beat Alabama. Doesn't matter if Saban's the coach. Doesn't matter if DeBoer's the coach. Georgia loses another one, and it comes after they looked like they were the favorites in the SEC. I feel like the SEC is pretty open, but let's just get your opening thoughts on this battle.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a battle. One thing I look at initially is just the quarterback play. Somewhat surprising. I think Ty Simpson significantly outplayed Gunnar Stockton. And ultimately, he's finding his legs and getting this Alabama team on the right track.
So when you look at the SEC now, obviously Ole Miss had the big win. LSU, I think, is still pretty solid. We thought Georgia was the favorite. Bama looks like they're back after getting rolled by Florida State. What do you make of the SEC now? Are they just that deep? Do you think there's a significant level between the Tier 1 and Tier 2? Or do we really think that there's, dare I say, 6 or 7 teams that are really contending for the SEC championship?
I definitely would say the SEC is probably the deepest conference in the nation. However, I still think there is some parity, regarding like the top teams and the lower level teams. Like, for example, like Vanderbilt, right? Like they're hanging around. They're a solid squad, but I don't see them really competing with the Alabama Crimson Tide, Ole Miss, LSU, Georgia, all these guys that are a little bit higher up on my ranking in my list. Missouri, right? Like those guys are upset alerts in my opinion. I'm not sure they're talent-wise on the same exact tier as those other teams. But like you said, I do believe it is the deepest conference. Any SEC opponent's a tough SEC opponent. And so, yeah.
I want to talk about Alabama for a second here because it felt like this game probably meant a little bit more to Bama just because of the fact they already had a loss coming in. I don't know if you have it pulled up right now, but their schedule going forward, from what I remember looking at, is brutal. Obviously, they have LSU on there, Missouri. Obviously, you got the Iron Bowl as well. But it's not going to get easier for Alabama, and that was a big win. So what do we make of this team now? Because in week 1, they got stomped by Florida State, who then just goes and loses to Virginia on the road. It seems like Alabama's back, but it also is not going to get easier for them. Where are we at with this Alabama team? Is it a top 10 team that just wasn't that great in week 1? Is it a team that is kind of in that lead pack for the SEC and is just fighting to, hopefully make an SEC championship, get a bye in the playoff? What do we make of Bama? Because it seems like the jury might still be out.
Yeah, I think Alabama is a top 10 team in the nation, if not close. That being said, right, like their defense stepped up. I think they played well against Georgia, right, holding them to 21 points, none in the fourth quarter. The offense, like I said, finding its leg, 13 for 19 on third down. Like, that's big time. So the execution is now there. I don't think that first week against Florida State was representative of this Alabama team. That being said, if we're talking about the, going back to the tiers, like the top teams in the nation, there is some sort of, consistency and execution difference between like a team like Ohio State, right, that literally will not beat themselves. You have to go in there and beat Ohio State. Bama's one of those teams where I expect them to win the games they should. However, they're not quite at that like top tier, like that top 5 team tier. So they still, I believe, can be upset in a tough, SEC conference. But yeah.
Let's move on to LSU and Ole Miss. This game was also very competitive, very close. We both had LSU in this one. We were both wrong. I predicted that this was going to be the week that Garrett Nussmeier and Brian Kelly got this Tigers offense going. Nussmeier had a ton of hype coming into this season. People thought he could be the number 1 overall pick, maybe the best quarterback prospect coming out of college football this year. and he's been very underwhelming. If I remember right, I think he was under 200 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. It just hasn't clicked. I don't know why. I don't know the rhyme or reason. I know they can't run the ball great. Their starting running back, Caleb Durham, was out for this game, but even when he's been healthy, they've still struggled to run it. And credit to Ole Miss. They got LSU on the ropes. They were in Oxford, and Lane Kiffin maybe had that extra motivation going against potentially his future son-in-law, who was on the opposing defense. But LSU looked good, Ole Miss looked good. And credit to Trinidad Chambliss, the quarterback for Ole Miss. Wasn't named the starter. He was a transfer at a Division III school, Ferris State, or maybe Division II. But nevertheless, comes in, balls out. He's had 300 yards passing the last 2 games. This one against a really, really good LSU defense. Is Ole Miss who we think they are? And then also, is LSU just really not that good?
I think Ole Miss is they're a good squad. But really, like, my takeaway from the game is largely focused on LSU's offense, right? Obviously, we knew their defense was good. I still think they're elite. I know they gave up 24 points, but if you're looking at the offensive end, they're 2 for 11 on third down, right? So that's tough on your defense to start with, right? Getting behind the sticks, putting pressure on your defense. I still think they perform pretty well, so I think it goes back to the offense. Garrett Nussmeier, I don't know. I mean, at the beginning of the year, people were talking about him being the number 1 overall pick, the number 1 quarterback off the board. And it just he doesn't look the part to me. I mean, like you said, under 200 yards passing. And even that 1 touchdown, right, that's a misthrown ball that he just gets lucky with and they catch the ball. So I think really this loss comes down to, the quarterback play as well as, probably play calling and just sort of the entire offensive side of things. Because I believe that Tigers defense is good. They can take them a long way, but not if the offense doesn't have their back.
Let's stay on LSU for a second. If you're the athletic department, if you're Brian Kelly, I know they have a tough schedule left, but let's say finish the year 10-2, they sneak into the college football playoff. What do you make of Brian Kelly? Because this is a guy he's had resources, whether it was at Notre Dame. Then he comes to LSU, and he claims that he has a better chance to win a national championship at LSU than he did at Notre Dame. And he's been recruiting well, and he has all this talent, but it just doesn't translate to what we're seeing on the field. This is hands down the most talented team they've had. Last year, they were hanging up 50 burgers, and their defense couldn't stop anyone. Mm-hmm. Now their defense is really good, and offensively they're struggling. So who do you point the finger to? Is it Brian Kelly? Is it Garrett Nussmeier? Do you look at the coordinators and say, hey, we have to come up with better schemes? Because it's obvious that the talent is there. We've seen that in flashes, but we haven't seen it come together in a complete game.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a situation like this, it always starts at the top, right? He's been getting talent in, so you can't necessarily fault him for that. However, if you don't have your team prepared to win big games and execute on the big stage, I mean, it starts with you. I mean, he brought back both his coordinators, so it's not like there's instability there. So, yeah, I think it starts with head coach Brian Kelly. I mean, of course, I don't want to discredit that, and say he hasn't won any big games, right? He starts the year off against Clemson. Clemson obviously is shaky now, but it's still a big game. But at the end of the day, bringing in all this talent means something, but you have to be able to execute when you need to, right? Eventually, we're going to have to beat, top 5 teams if we want to win the national championship, which, according to the AP poll, Ole Miss is.
Yeah, let's talking about quarterbacks that have been underperforming. Let's get to Penn State, Oregon. Drew Aller, this dude's buns. I'm going to say that straight out of the gate. Drew Aller, I'm looking right in the camera when I say this, the most overrated quarterback in recent memory in college football. He struggles to complete short passes. He struggles to move the ball downfield. Obviously, he has the interception in overtime. I've not been impressed with this guy since he's been at Penn State. I know you agree with me on this. There's all this hype that he could be the guy. He can be the number 1 overall pick. There's never been a game where I've watched Drew Aller and gone, ooh, this guy has the potential to be a franchise quarterback on an NFL team. I just don't see it. We were even watching some film on Instagram today on him. And they were playing Nevada at home. It was like their week 1 opponent. He's missing easy guys that are just open, finding spots in the zone. He's missing deep balls, throwing guys out of bounds. And then last night, it was the most Drew Aller Penn State game I think I've ever seen because they were getting dominated for 3 quarters. It looked like Oregon had ran away with it, 17-3. Penn State goes on a very impressive 2-minute drive, gets it to 1 possession. Obviously, they send it to overtime. And in that time frame, you go, okay, this is the Penn State that people expect to see. And then when you get into a big situation at the whiteout game, top 10 matchup, what do Penn State and Drew Aller do? They choke, and that's what they always do. Throw an interception. Drew Aller goes back to his old ways of underperforming when the lights are at their brightest. I'm not impressed by Penn State. I think they're a playoff team. I think they'll, make the playoff, probably lose in the first or second round. I was not impressed with what I saw last night, but I also think that's a big win for Oregon. And I'm going to let you hit on that because I know you were very pumped from what you saw from your Ducks last night.
Yeah, that was one of my only correct picks this week. Pretty poor performance in that category. However, I do think I accurately picked this game. Obviously, I picked an Oregon win as an Oregon Duck diehard fan. But, I said it was going to come down to Drew Aller in a big moment, and he made a poor decision, threw it right to us, and essentially, did end his team's chances when they were really driving. And I completely agree. I think Drew Aller is a serviceable college football quarterback, even a high-level college football quarterback, but not one that's going to win you a national championship, not one that you probably lean on in critical moments. I feel like he's a product of a good system. He has talent around him. He makes good throws most of the time, but still, I like to look back at the completion percentage. I can't remember exactly what his completion percentage was last night. I think it was 14 for 25, which is relatively low, and really throughout his career, the completion percentage is pretty low. And so what that just tells me is, right, just like indecision, sort of missed balls, not horrible, but not great. And I think that's just sort of the story of Drew Aller's career. Obviously, he'll go down as a Penn State great, but there's levels to it, and I just don't think Drew Aller's there.
Let's talk about the 2 paths for these teams going forward. Oregon, they have Indiana at home. I think they will win that game. I think Oregon at Autzen Stadium. Now after Georgia and Washington losing, they have the longest home winning streak in college football. If they can get past Indiana, it seems like things are relatively smooth sailing as long as they continue to play at a high level. They're ranked number 2 in the AP poll now. I think that's pretty accurate. They probably have the best win in college football at the moment. What do you like about this Oregon team? Obviously, Dante Moore looked great. Kenyon Sadiq, he's a stud. They have weapons on offense. Is there any games that scare you moving forward? Do you think they're smooth sailing their way into the college football playoff? And obviously, last year we saw this team be red hot throughout the regular season, win the Big Ten championship, get to the college football playoff, get throttled by Ohio State. What's different from this team compared to last year, and is there any concerns that you have going forward as we enter the second half of the season?
Yeah, well, as for what's different compared to this team, from this team compared to last year, I think even though we had to hit the portal, sign a bunch of guys, right? We have freshman guys on the outside. I think as well-rounded as last year's team was, I think this year's team maybe even more well-rounded. Our defense looks really good. I know we gave up 24 last night, but realistically that's 17 outside of an overtime.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of yards, under 300 total yards. Obviously kept Drew Aller to 143 yards passing. I think we're a well-rounded squad, and what I really like from the Ducks this year is just like on the execution side of things. Even, I know it's early in the season, but even when we've played teams that are, at a lower level, our execution has been there, right? Like there hasn't been any sort of sneaky like, we came out sloppy, we're not looking too good. Northwestern, you could argue our run defense was a little bit, sloppy, but outside of that, the execution's high, and I think that bodes well for a team that wants to win a national championship. It honestly, as much as it hates me to say, it reminds me of like Ohio State, right? They do not beat themselves. Right now, I do not feel like the Oregon Ducks are going to beat themselves. That being said, like the scary things, right? Indiana has a really big defensive line next week. I think we should be able to handle them. Our offensive line's good. Obviously, going to Washington, that's at the end of the year. I think Washington proved to be a talented team despite a 24-6 loss this week. I don't think that score truly represents the talent level of Washington. So there's some games that we really need to lock in for, but thus far, I haven't seen any sort of hot drop-offs. It's all been just steady. Our quarterback plays good. Dante Moore seems to be calm in all situations. So I think we're going to have to be beat by somebody more talented on the outside.
Yeah, I'm going to put my hand up here. This is the hand of accountability. I picked Penn State to win this game. I completely rode, the Oregon hater train that I've been riding my whole life. If I was putting money on it, I probably would have favored the Ducks a little bit, but I thought that maybe Penn State, this was finally the time they could get it done because they were at home. If this was at Autzen, I think Oregon probably would have won by more. I don't think we would have seen an overtime game. But I can't stand to pick the team in green and yellow, so I went against Penn State. I think you're right. I think Oregon's a team. They're not going to beat themselves. I think Dan Lanning especially has a sour taste in his mouth from last year. And what Oregon has that many teams don't is a quarterback that has trusted the process of development, and you just don't see that a lot of times. Usually you see guys get rushed into these starting roles. Dante Moore went to UCLA, struggled a little bit, but he was a true freshman. He decides to come back to Oregon and ride the bench for a full season. You don't see very many guys do that, at least not intentionally. And I think he learned so much behind Dylan Gabriel that now that he's in this starting role this year, he seems so much more calm. We saw him be very poised yesterday at Happy Valley. And as much as I hate to say, I think Oregon, they're going to be a serious threat going forward. And I'm interested to see what happens.
Yeah, one thing that I think about, and it's sort of a niche way to evaluate a team, but like the best teams, I think about Ohio State last year, Michigan the year before, right? These teams that are bringing in more talent and are well-rounded, good on both ends of the ball. One way to evaluate them, I think, is the need for explosive plays on offense and the lack of explosive plays given up on defense. And I see that more from this Duck squad as compared to last year, right? We're keeping the ball underneath on defense, right? We're not giving anything up over the top. Obviously, a few here and there, right? Last night's, Aller's throw over the top beat Thieneman on the inside. Or to the outside, excuse me. That was one of them. But overall, we're not giving up explosive plays. And while I love generating them on offense, last night we really showcased that we can methodically move the ball down the field. And I think that's a key to a winning football team. It reminds me of Georgia back in the day, right? Obviously, they had some playmakers. They threw it over the top when they got the opportunities, but they didn't have to do that. They were going to work the ball down the field, run it down your throat, right? Short passes, just keep moving it down the field. And then on defense, they didn't give them up over the top. And I think those they signal a complete team, a team with a real shot. And I think the Ducks, that's what they're signaling to me so far.
Yeah, there's a lot of pro-style tendencies that I felt like I saw in that game yesterday. And this is not even any shade at Oregon, but I also think it's easy to not give up too many plays over the top when you're facing a quarterback who's got a pool noodle for an arm. So let's get to a team that did shoot themselves in the foot yesterday. Washington, they dropped one at home, 24-6. Devastating. I rode the dog train. I rode the hype train. I thought there was going to be a way. Husky Stadium was going to be rocking. And I think it was loud from what I saw there. But also I'd like to make a PSA. Way too much red on Montlake yesterday. I don't know what we're doing. I've been scrolling Twitter. We had people in seats wearing red and those seats are owned by people who are donating significant amounts of money to the University of Washington. Can't have that. If you're throwing money into our NIL collective, do not sell your tickets to a nice family of four from Columbus, Ohio. That is completely unacceptable behavior. If you did that, you need to look yourself in the mirror and really make a reality check in your life, because I am very disappointed in some of my Husky fans there. But getting into the game a little bit, I mean, listen, Ohio State, that defense is nasty. I know people are going to say Damon Williams held on to the ball too long. You go back and look at some of the plays. He has no one to throw the ball to. And as much as he probably did need to make those decisions a little quicker, you can't throw it to guys if they're not open. The run game was inconsistent. It's hard to get a run game going when you're not able to move the ball downfield with Damon Williams' arm. But at the same time, Washington, a lot of just unfortunate penalties, untimely penalties, and also a couple questionable calls by the refs. That's not why we lost, but there were some things that screwed us, like that roughing the passer. I believe that was late in the third quarter. But inside the 5-yard line, twice have to kick field goals. Another chance to kick a field goal, go up 6-0 in the second. We run a fake, and it gets blown up. No one was ready for it. And then Julian Sain played really well. He didn't turn the ball over. He found his guys. He got Jeremiah Smith open. So credit to Ohio State, but it also felt like a game that Washington could have made very, very competitive.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a Ducks fan. I don't like to give the Huskies credit. However, I think that score of that game was not representative of the game that was played on the field, and I think the Huskies got a good squad. At the end of the day, you held Ohio State to 24 points. That's pretty good, pretty reasonable. And then also, like you were saying, realistically, Washington should have 13 to 17 points in that game, outside of a few miscues on offense. And so that's a bright something to look forward to in the future, I guess. As long as these guys do what they need to do moving ahead, I know they have a tough schedule, but they have an outside shot to push for the playoffs. I think it's small, but right, like if we only drop one more game, hold on.
We just got a we out of this guy. We just got a we out of this guy talking about Washington football. That's going to get clipped.
If they only drop one more game, they'll be top 15. I don't know if they make a push into the top 12, but I think it's a legit squad. And you have a dude at quarterback. I know people talking about him holding on the ball, whatever. At the end of the day, he kept him in it. He didn't turn over the ball against Ohio State, right? A nasty defense, like you were saying. So I think that's a real bright spot in your program, and then also the future, right? Sophomore quarterback, and he's holding it down. So I think this team's good.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing too is health. When you look at our injury status now, we already played the game without our first-round talent defensive back, Dakario Davis. That's always going to hurt when you're going up against a team like Ohio State. The week before, starting linebacker Buda Alukta, he tears his ACL, it sounds like. And then on top of that, left tackle gets hurt in the game. We have our best edge rusher, Zach Durfee. Looks like he might have fractured his arm. We don't really know yet. So this team's got to stay healthy if they want to have a chance, because they're on the road at Maryland next week. Not going to be an easy one there. Then you get Rutgers, and then you get into really the meat and potatoes. You go to the Big House, you play Michigan. You get Illinois at home, hopefully a bounce-back win there at home. And then Purdue, UCLA, and there's someone else in there that I'm missing. I don't know if you're looking at the schedule right now. But 3 very winnable games before we play Oregon. Wisconsin. So very winnable games, but you have to find a way to hopefully get to that Oregon game with just 1 loss, maybe 2 losses, as long as it's to hopefully Michigan or Illinois. Because if you can get to that U of O game and you're looking at 9-2 heading into that game, there's a lot of potential there if you could knock off your rival at Husky Stadium. You're a 10-2 team, some quality wins on that schedule, some close losses. I mean, the case is there to be made, but a lot's going to have to happen for that to go right. That's going to wrap it up for the college football segment of our show. Let's get into a couple NFL things. We saw some interesting things today. Jackson Dart picked up his first career win and his first career start against an undefeated Chargers team. We caught a majority of that game. What'd you see from him that you liked?
I think he was just composed, right? He looks comfortable back there. Hit a funny little touchdown celebration after his first run. And so that signals a guy that's confident. And so I think that's good. I think overall, just looking at the game from a holistic standpoint, I think I was more disappointed just in the Chargers. Yeah. I think the Giants in some ways sort of protected Dart. I think he did play well, right? But he didn't have to force the ball down the field. A lot of underneath throws, QB runs, design runs, things like that, right? Ways to sort of protect a guy in his first start. And when the other team is protecting their quarterback in his first start, as a Chargers team that has looked really good thus far, I don't know how you don't take advantage of that, put up some points on the board, and win a football game.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about the Chargers for a second, they had turnovers that you just can't have. I mean, I had Herbert, started him in fantasy simply because they're playing the New York Giants, who are notoriously buns, and he threw 2 picks. I thought their defense was solid, but when your offense is turning the ball over, not putting points on the board, it makes life a lot harder on that Chargers defense. I thought Dart was good. Obviously, you're never going to see a team just throw the whole playbook at their rookie quarterback in his first start. But Dable, he knows what he's doing, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I think what people forget is he was a huge part of Josh Allen's development when Allen got brought into Buffalo, and now he's a MVP in the NFL. And so this guy knows how to develop quarterbacks. The unfortunate part is it looks like Malik Neighbors is going to be done for the year. I think he tore his ACL. But one of the funniest parts that I love about this Giants team is the dynamic between Jackson Dart and Cam Skattebo. Skattebo is a Tasmanian devil. He's insane. He runs through guys. You see him just clashing helmets with defenders. And I think when he has that energy and he has that kind of support for his young quarterback, it also makes things easier on Dart because he has that confidence. He has kind of that hype guy in the backfield with him. And now, listen, I don't think the Giants are going to be making a playoff push or anything, but they could be an exciting team to watch going forward. And who knows? Maybe Jackson Dart has saved Brian Dable's job.
Yeah, he may have. I think it's funny just commenting on Cam Skattebo real quick. Obviously, like on Instagram or highlights on TV, you always see him running guys over. But what's funny is if you watch the game, like it's every single play. Like no matter, there's no such thing as just going down. No matter what, he's going to make contact with 6 dudes every play. It's pretty fun to watch.
It's like he is entering each game like, dude, I'm one step closer to CTE as long as I just kill someone today. I've seen him go, like, if he was a linebacker in college football, he would get ejected for targeting in the first quarter of every single game.
Yeah.
Especially when you see him in pass blocking, if there's a blitz and a linebacker's coming down, you just see his head just go. And he just puts it right down, and it's funny to watch. He's electric, and he's good, too. Like, we saw him. Yeah. I don't know if he had a touchdown today. I know he had a 2-point conversion. But he's starting to get a lot more carries, starting to get a lot of catches in the pass game as well. And I think the Giants are actually trending in the right direction. I saw some things from Abdul Carter that I liked today as well. So it could be exciting going forward. Your Cowboys, they're on Sunday Night Football tonight, playing a familiar foe, Micah Parsons, former Cowboy, current Packer. Game is probably starting right now as we're recording. If I had to make a game time prediction, I'd say the Packers, excuse my language, but they waxed that ass. Do you have any hope for your Cowboys? They've looked better than expected, but what do you see from them here?
I mean, it really just comes down to explosive plays. Like, we can't no blame should be put on the offense or Dak or anything. Like, I know he threw 2 interceptions last week against Chicago. That's because he's playing from behind, right? Like, we give up so many big plays. If somehow we find out a way to not do that, we can compete. We have a good offense. We have, I'm not saying top tier, but we have playmakers. But at this point in the season, anybody can go for 50 or more on us at any moment. It doesn't have to be your number one guy. It could be your 4th string receiver. So it really, like I said, tonight's game comes down to explosive plays. If we don't give them up against Green Bay, we have a shot. I'm not saying we'll beat them. They're probably a better all-around, squad. But it's just going to come down to whether we give up a 75-yard touchdown on the opening drive or not, pretty much.
It's almost like you guys traded your best defender. That's crazy that the defense is struggling. If you had to guess when Micah Parsons comes out today, let's say he gets a sack, in introductions they call him out, whatever. We know he's not getting a tribute video. Are you expecting boos from Cowboys fans, or are you expecting cheers when Micah Parsons' when his name gets called in Jerry's World tonight?
Oh, definitely cheers. That's on. I think Cowboy Nation loves Micah Parsons. We're more upset at Jerry Jones. But just on a side note, update: 3rd and 9 at the Green Bay 32. The Dallas Cowboys give up a 46-yard pass on the first drive. This is live, people. It leads to a touchdown score. We are down 7-0. This is unbelievable. It's actually insane. Our secondary resembles that of a
shite. We'll say it's some shite.
It resembles let me think. Oklahoma State comes to mind. It resembles me. It resembles Mike Gundy's secondary. It's absolutely unbelievable. I have no idea what's wrong. I feel like I'm sure we're lacking talent in the secondary. However, I've never seen one this bad. I don't think it can be that much talent-oriented. It has to be a combination of scheme. We need to really analyze this.
If you can't tell, this guy's really in his feels right now about his Cowboys. My Patriots got a big win today against the Panthers. Big bounce back after having 6 turnovers against the Steelers last week. So that's a good Sunday after what was a miserable Saturday for your boy yesterday. Let's talk some Ryder Cup. It was very interesting this weekend. The Europeans, as much as I hate to say it, they got the win. They retained the Ryder Cup. They won the Ryder Cup. There was this weird conversation that the commentators were having about that today with the difference between retaining it and winning it.
They won it, though. They got 14 and
They did win it. Yeah. But, the Europeans, you never really know what you're getting with those guys. Listen, we only could give up like 2 points coming into today, and it came down to the last 3 or 4 matches right there. Russell Henley leaves the putt short. Listen, I'm terrible at golf, but I do know can't leave it short on big putts, and he did that. And Shane Lowry clinched the dub for the European team. What did you think of this Ryder Cup? It was at Bethpage in New York. A lot of hype around it. I saw some moments where the crowd was rowdy, but watching it on TV, it seemed kind of disappointing.
Yeah, it's a hard one for America, man. I bleed the red, white, and blue, and couldn't pull it home. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we almost made a hell of a comeback.
Historic. Would have been the biggest. It would have been the biggest comeback by like twice as much as the record now for the largest comeback.
And who better to do it than the USA? But
we've always been the underdogs, dude.
But no, realistically, we just sucked in the first 2 days. Like that was pretty much what
Awful.
It came down to.
So bad.
There's some, people are questioning Keegan Bradley's pairings in the 4-ball and foursomes. At the end of the day, I think just about every matchup in 4-ball and foursomes, some might favor one side or the other, but not so. There's not such a large discrepancy that we should be down 12-5 heading into Sunday. So I think ultimately we didn't golf that well on the first 2 days, and that's just is what it is. I think rosters, they probably had, looking at the year on the PGA Tour and the LIV tournament, like they probably had a slight advantage, but
wasn't significant. It wasn't as significant.
It shouldn't have been a blowout on Friday and Saturday, which it was. So
yeah, it was a tough look. I've slowly started to get into golf more and more throughout the summer, and listen, anytime there's a sporting event on and the U.S. is involved, I'm locked in. No matter if it's golf, if it's field hockey, lacrosse, track, whatever it is, I'm dialed in for the U.S. of A. I love my freaking country, man. It gets me fired up. But let's get into our final segment before we get you guys out of here. Dude of the Week. This is inspired by the Matt and Shane podcast, which they have their Babe of the Week segment. We will not be doing this. We will not be doing that, but we will have Dude of the Week. Hunter, we're going to let you do the honors. The rules of Dude of the Week, it could be an athlete, it could be a celebrity, it could be a guy you met at the local gas station, whoever you want to be Dude of the Week. Who you got?
So I'm going through between two here. I mean, this is an obvious pick. Dante Moore, right? Comes into the whiteout, composed. I mean, this guy didn't show any fear. Calm. Goes in, 29 of 39, 3 touchdowns. Great performance by a sophomore QB. So that's one option. The other one that comes to mind is Scotty Scheffler's caddy. It's
Ted Scott.
Ted Scott, man. U.S. needs something to get him fired up. We're walking off the green, getting a little handsy with the European caddies and players. I freaking love that out of Ted Scott. So I'm going to go with 2 dudes of the week, Ted Scott and Dante Moore. It's unfortunate that Scheffler couldn't really help us bring home the Ryder Cup this week, but his caddy was all in for America, and that's what I love to see. And so for that reason, Ted Scott deserves a Dude of the Week shout-out.
Since you responded with 2 Dudes of the Week, I'm also going to go with my co-Dudes of the Week. The first one was a story that I read on Twitter yesterday. Happened at the Washington-Ohio State game. It almost seems just like a joke that someone made up, but it seemed like it was real. There's a Washington fan in the elevator. Ohio State guy walks in, kind of that awkward, competitive silence. Washington dude turns to him and goes, "Hey, man, I know I'm supposed to hate you today, but I just want to say I really appreciate what you did to Oregon in the Rose Bowl last year." And that's why we love college football. No matter the matchup, no matter how much we're rooting for our team or hating on the other team, some people will always come together over a hated rival, and that's Oregon. And so that was really funny to see. Had a good chuckle reading that after we took a brutal loss at home. My main dude of the week, this has been in my brain since I saw this yesterday. The Louisville football ball boy.
Ooh, yep.
He's the dude of the week.
He's dude of the week, official. The other ones were the honorable mentions. Louisville ball boy, the dude of the week.
He's the dude. If you guys haven't seen this interaction, you need to go find it right now. It's very easy to find. It's on ESPN. It's everywhere. So Pitt was playing Louisville. Louisville's on the road. Pitt gets an interception, and Pitt has this tradition when they get a turnover, they dunk the football into a basketball hoop. Well, the Louisville ball boy got the football after the pick.
This is a Louisville football, obviously.
Right. The two Pitt defenders come up and start gang beating this dude. They literally tackled him, started wrestling the ball away from him. He got into it with one of the Pitt players. It was insane. Long story short, Louisville goes on to win the game on the road at Pitt. The ball boy after the game posts, just so you guys know, got that ball back. Post a selfie with the ball.
Cold.
Hashtag hold that L because they beat Pitt. That's what I like to see. Just because you're not out there with shoulder pads and a helmet doesn't mean you can't be a dude and light a fire under your team. So shout out to the Louisville ball boy. I know he's not watching this, but just know I got mad respect for you, man. That's all I got for this show today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. There's going to be some major improvements to the show. We're looking to get a studio again soon, looking to get some new tech upgrades, so hopefully we'll get that going in the near future. But it's going to be exciting. Hunter, we're glad to have you on, man. It's nice to have a partner in crime on the pod. And if you haven't already, tell a friend, tell your beautiful mother about Chop It Up, whoever it is, your dog. Like the video, subscribe, share it on your story, tell your coworkers, tell your friends, spread the word about Chop It Up. Please help us out. And if you want to hear more from me, tune in to Ace Sports Radio. Tee It Up Southern Oregon is the name of the show, airing Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific time. That's going to wrap it up for Chop It Up. Enjoy the week, set the tone on Monday, and have a great week, everybody. Thank you for your time.